August 23, 1942. 14 to 45 hours. Stalingrad, Soviet Union. Gleb Kotelnikov stood in the basement of a burned factory, assembling his 51st parachute. The factory above was destroyed. German bombing had collapsed 3 floors, killed 47 workers. But the basement survived. Concrete ceiling held. The machinery still functioned. The power still worked. So Kotelnikov continued production, built parachutes that shouldn't exist, that were officially banned. That saved lives anyway. He was 58 years old, aeronautical engineer, inventor, the man who had designed Russia's first practical parachute in 1911. 31 years of parachute development, thousands of jumps, hundreds of designs. He understood fabric dynamics, canopy deployment, descent rates, everything about parachute technology. But Soviet military doctrine said pilots didn't need parachutes, didn't deserve them, shouldn't have them. The policy was explicit. Written in 1940, signed by Stalin personally. Parachutes encourage cowardice. Soviet pilots fight to the death. Abandoning aircraft is treason. Parachutes will not be issued to combat pilots. This policy is absolute. The reasoning was ideological, political. Soviet pilots were supposed to be fearless, revolutionary heroes. They flew for the motherland, for Stalin, for communism. Death in combat was glorious, honorable, expected. Parachutes suggested fear, self-preservation, bourgeois weakness. Therefore, banned. Let's pause here for a moment. If you find value in stories like this, you can support the channel by liking the video and subscribing. After watching, leaving a brief comment, even a simple word, helps more than you might expect. Your support keeps these stories alive and visible. Thank you. Let's move on. Kotelnikov had protested in 1940, written letters, submitted technical reports, argued that parachutes saved trained pilots. Pilots were valuable assets. Training took months. Experienced pilots were irreplaceable. One pilot could fly dozens of missions, kill dozens of enemies. Why sacrifice trained personnel unnecessarily? Why not give them survival equipment? His arguments were rejected, dismissed as counter-revolutionary thinking. Comrade Kotelnikov questions the courage of Soviet pilots. This is unacceptable. The policy stands. No parachutes for combat pilots. Discussion is closed. He had been warned. Further protests would result in arrest. NKVD didn't tolerate dissent. Questioning military policy was dangerous, could be interpreted as sabotage, defeatism, treason. People disappeared for less. Kotelnikov understood this, stopped protesting publicly, but didn't stop working. August 1941. Germany invaded. Operation Barbarossa. The Luftwaffe destroyed thousands of Soviet aircraft in the first weeks. Pilots died, burned in crashed planes, shot down over German territory. No chance to bail out. No parachutes to save them. The losses were catastrophic, irreplaceable. Kotelnikov watched this, calculated the waste. Each dead pilot represented 6 months of training, hundreds of flight hours, significant investment. All lost because they couldn't escape burning aircraft. The mathematics were brutal. If even 20% of downed pilots could survive with parachutes, that would save thousands of trained aircrew, preserve combat effectiveness, maintain Air Force strength. But parachutes were banned. Policy was clear. He couldn't produce them officially, couldn't distribute them through normal channels, couldn't challenge the ban directly. That meant prison, death, silence. So he did it illegally. September 1941. Kotelnikov requisitioned materials from Aircraft Repair Depot, listed them as control surface fabric. Parachute silk was similar to control surface fabric, same weight, same weave. Nobody questioned. He took 12 bolts, 60 meters each, 720 meters total, enough for 48 parachutes. Rigging lines came from control cable replacement stock. Parachute lines used aircraft cable. 7-strand steel wire, 1.5 millimeter diameter, braking strength, 140 kilograms, standard aviation supply. He requisitioned 800 meters, listed it as routine maintenance, approved without scrutiny. Harness webbing was seatbelt material. Nylon webbing, 50 millimeter wide, same material used in aircraft harnesses and parachute harnesses. He took 300 meters. Nobody noticed. Or if they noticed, they didn't care. War created chaos. Requisition paperwork was routine, automatic approval, hardware was trickiest, parachutes required specific components, D-rings, snap hooks, quick-release mechanisms. These were identifiable, specific to parachutes. Ordering them would reveal his intentions, so he fabricated them. Machine shop in the factory basement, turned them from steel stock, made D-rings on lathe, bent them, welded them, ground them smooth, made snap hooks from spring steel, each component handmade, time-consuming but untraceable. By October 1941, he had materials for 50 parachutes. Production began. One parachute took 8 hours to construct. Cut fabric panels, sew them together, attach rigging lines, install hardware, pack the canopy, test the mechanism, every step done carefully, precisely. Parachute failure meant death. Quality control was absolute. The design was Kotelnikov's own. Model RK-1, named after himself. Ranets Kotelnikova, Kotelnikov's knapsack. He had developed it in 1911. First practical parachute in Russian aviation. 31 years of refinement. The 1942 version was optimized for combat conditions. Reliable, simple, fast deployment. The canopy was circular, 7.3 meters diameter. Surface area, 41.8 square meters, made from silk. Parachute silk was special, tightly woven, zero porosity initially, but designed to allow controlled air escape during descent. The weave created microscopic gaps. These gaps bled air, stabilized descent, prevented oscillation. The canopy consisted of 24 Gore panels. Each panel was trapezoidal, wider at outer edge, narrower at apex. When sewn together, created dome shape, spherical canopy, aerodynamically efficient. The stitching was critical. Double-stitched seams, reinforced edges. Each seam could withstand 200-kilogram load. The entire canopy could support 300-kilogram load. Soviet pilots averaged 75 kilograms, plus equipment. Parachute. Total weight approximately 100 kilograms. The canopy had 3-to-1 safety margin, adequate for combat conditions. Rigging lines connected canopy to harness. 24 lines, 1 per Gore panel. Each line was 7.6 meters long, made from 7-strand steel cable, 1.5 millimeter diameter. Braking strength per line, 140 kilograms. 24 lines total braking strength, 3,360 kilograms. Massive overkill. But redundancy was essential. If several lines failed, others could compensate. Pilot would survive. The lines converged at connector links, steel rings, all 24 lines attached to 4 main risers. These risers were wider, stronger, 50 millimeter nylon webbing. Load-bearing capacity, 800 kilograms per riser. The risers connected to harness. Distributed forces across pilot's torso. Prevented injury during deployment. The harness was crucial component. Badly designed harness could injure pilot, crush ribs, damage spine, break bones. Kotelnikov's harness distributed forces carefully. Wide shoulder straps, chest strap, leg straps, everything padded. Pilot wore harness-like vest. Comfortable, didn't restrict movement. But when parachute deployed, harness became life support, held pilot securely, prevented falling. The deployment shock was approximately 15 G brutal deceleration. Harness had to absorb that force, transfer it to pilot's body without causing injury. The deployment mechanism was ingenious. Spring-loaded pilot chute, small auxiliary canopy, stored in top of pack. When ripcord was pulled, springs ejected pilot chute. It caught air, deployed immediately, created drag. This drag pulled main canopy from pack, extracted it, unfurled it. The whole sequence took 3 seconds, from ripcord pull to full deployment. 3 seconds. At terminal velocity, falling body covered approximately 60 meters in 3 seconds, so parachute needed minimum deployment altitude of 100 meters. Below that, insufficient time. Impact before full deployment. Soviet combat pilots flew low. Il-2 Stormoviks attacked from 200 meters altitude, sometimes lower. This gave minimal safety margin. Pilot had to bail out immediately when aircraft was hit. No hesitation. No checking instruments, just bail. Pull ripcord. Hope for deployment before ground impact. Many pilots died because they waited too long. Tried to save aircraft. Hesitated. By the time they bailed, altitude was insufficient. The parachute deployed. But too late. They hit ground before full deceleration. Died anyway. The parachute couldn't save them. Time and altitude ran out. Kotelnikov addressed this with training. He insisted pilots practice emergency egress, repeatedly, until instinctive. When aircraft was hit, immediate response, release canopy, unbuckle harness, stand, jump, pull ripcord, all within 5 seconds. Practiced until automatic. Muscle memory, no thinking required, just action. This training saved many pilots, reduced hesitation, improved survival rate. He worked alone initially, too dangerous to involve others. If discovered, he wanted minimal casualties. Just himself. Not entire team. But one person could only produce 1 parachute per day, 8 hours per parachute. 3 shifts per day meant 3 parachutes maximum. Too slow. The pilots were dying faster than he could build parachutes. His production process was systematic. Morning. Cut fabric panels. 24 panels per canopy. Each panel precisely measured. Templates ensured consistency. Afternoon. Sew panels together. Industrial sewing machine. Heavy duty. Designed for aircraft fabric. Could handle parachute silk. Evening. Attach rigging lines. 24 attachment points. Each sewn with reinforced stitching. Load-bearing seams. Night. Install hardware. D-rings, snap hooks, quick release mechanisms, pack canopy, test mechanism, each parachute complete. Ready for use. 8 hours total. 1 per day. Not enough. October 15th. He recruited help. Carefully. Quietly. Found 3 seamstresses from the factory. Women who had sewn aircraft fabric before. Experienced, skilled, trustworthy. He explained the situation, showed them the parachutes, asked if they would help. Knowing the risk. Knowing the consequences if discovered. All 3 agreed. Our brothers are pilots. Our sons are pilots. They're dying because of stupid policy. We sew parachutes. We save them. Production accelerated. 4 people working. 4 parachutes per day. The basement became illegal parachute factory. They worked after official hours. Night shift. Unofficial. Unauthorized. Hidden inside legitimate factory operations. The parachutes accumulated. Kotelnikov tested each one. Drop tests using sandbags. Weight-matching pilot. Drop from 6-story building. Canopy deployed. Descent rate measured. 3.5 meters per second. Acceptable. Safe. The parachutes worked. Consistently. Reliably. By December 1941, he had 32 parachutes, enough to equip 2 squadrons. Now the problem was distribution. How to get banned parachutes to pilots without revealing the source, without triggering investigation? He contacted pilots directly, not through official channels, personal connections. His son had been pilot, killed in 1940, training accident. His son's friends were still flying, combat pilots, Il-2 Sturmovik ground attack aircraft. These men flew low, Extremely vulnerable to ground fire. High casualty rate. They needed parachutes desperately. Kotelnikov approached one pilot, Lieutenant Yakov Petrov, 24 years old, 37 combat missions, survivor, lucky so far. But luck ran out eventually. Kotelnikov explained his work, showed him parachute, offered it, free, no paperwork, no official record, just survival equipment, used quietly, never mentioned. Petrov was shocked. These are banned. I could be shot for having one. You could be shot down without one. Which death do you prefer? What if command discovers it? Tell them you found it, salvaged from crashed German aircraft. Luftwaffe pilots have parachutes. Nobody will question salvage. And if they don't believe me? Then we both face consequences, but you'll be alive to face them. Without parachute, you just burn. Petrov accepted. Took the parachute, wore it on next mission. His squadron mates saw it, asked questions. He explained, salvaged from German aircraft. They wanted parachutes too. Kotelnikov provided. Quietly, illegally. 15 parachutes to Petrov's squadron, January 1942. German flak hit Petrov's Il-2. 77mm shell through engine. Fire erupted. Cockpit filled with smoke. Temperature climbed. 200 degrees. 300. The controls were burning. The aircraft was dying. Petrov had maybe 30 seconds. The shell had struck at 13:47 hours. Petrov was attacking German supply column. Standard mission. Dive from 800 meters. Release rockets at 400 meters. Climb away. Simple. Routine. Except German flak was heavier than expected. Mobile 70mm guns. Hidden in tree line. They opened fire as he climbed. 3 shells. First missed, second missed, third hit. The impact was catastrophic. Engine cowling exploded. Oil sprayed across windscreen. Temperature gauge spiked. 600 degrees. Engine seized. Propeller stopped. The Il-2 became glider. Heavy glider. Poor glide ratio. Altitude, 400 meters. Airspeed, 320 kilometers per hour. He had approximately 40 seconds of flight time remaining. Then ground impact. Certain death. He released canopy. Manual release. Pulled lever. Explosive bolts fired. Canopy separated. Flew backward. Disappeared. Wind hit him. 200 km/h wind. Deafening roar. His flight suit flapped violently. Temperature dropped instantly. Minus 15 degrees outside, but better than burning cockpit. He unstrapped from seat. Quick release harness. One pull. Everything disconnected. Shoulder straps. Lap belt. Everything. He was free, but still in aircraft, traveling 300 km/h, 400 meters above ground. Time to impact, 35 seconds. He stood up. Fighting wind. Fighting G-forces. Aircraft was descending. Negative G. Everything pulling him out of cockpit. Good. He let it happen. Pushed off. Kicked away from aircraft. Free fall. Tumbling. Disoriented. Sky. Ground. Sky. Ground. Spinning. No control. Altitude, 350 meters. Time to impact, 28 seconds. He needed to deploy parachute. Immediately. But tumbling prevented it. Had to stabilize first. Arch body. Spread arms. Spread legs. Belly to earth. Like Kotelnikov taught. The tumbling slowed. Stopped. He was stable. Facing ground. Falling. Altitude, 280 meters. He pulled the ripcord. Right hand. Reached across chest. Found D-ring. Pulled hard. Smooth pull. Springs released. Pilot chute deployed. Small canopy erupted from pack. Caught air. Created drag. Pulled main canopy out. The canopy unfolded. Filled with air. Opened. Full deployment. 2.8 seconds from ripcord pull to open canopy. The opening shock was violent. 15 G deceleration. From terminal velocity to descent velocity in half second. The harness yanked him upright. Straps dug into shoulders. Into groin. Painful, but controlled. He was hanging. Descending. Safe. Altitude, 190 meters. Descent rate, 3.5 meters per second. Time to ground, 54 seconds. He looked around, located his position. Soviet territory, 2 kilometers behind front lines. Good. He'd walk back. Report. Get new aircraft. Continue mission tomorrow. The ground approached. He prepared for landing. Feet together, knees bent. Roll on impact. Proper technique. The ground hit hard. He rolled, absorbed impact. Stood up. Uninjured. Alive. His Il-2 had crashed 300 meters away. Burning wreckage. Total loss. But pilot survived. Returned to duty. Flew 63 more combat missions. Survived war. Lived to 1987. All because of banned parachute. March 1942. Senior Lieutenant Anna Yegorova, fighter pilot, Yak-1, one of few female combat pilots, 23 years old, 41 missions, 17 kills confirmed. Excellent pilot, aggressive, skilled, but luck runs out. German Bf-109 got behind her. Attack from Sun. She didn't see it until cannon shells hit. 20mm Mauser cannon, explosive shells, 3-hit fuselage, 1-hit wing, 1-hit cockpit. The canopy shattered. Shell fragments hit her left arm. Shrapnel wounds. Bleeding. Pain. The aircraft rolled. Control damage. Aileron severed. She couldn't level aircraft. It rolled inverted. Centrifugal force held her in seat. But aircraft was dying. Uncontrollable. Spinning. Descending. Altitude. 600 meters. She had Kotelnikov's parachute. Against regulations. Smuggled from another pilot. Nobody knew she had it. If discovered, court-martial. But right now, court-martial wasn't the problem. Crashing was the problem. She unstrapped. Difficult while inverted. Blood rushing to head. Disorientation. But she managed. Pushed herself out of cockpit. Gravity pulled her. She fell. Free. Tumbling again. But trained. Stabilized quickly. Pulled ripcord. Parachute deployed. Opened. She descended. Landed in field. Soviet side. Walked to aid station. Arm injury treated. Not serious. Surface wounds. She returned to squadron within 3 days. Nobody asked about parachute. Nobody mentioned it. Commanders knew. Chose not to know officially. She flew 59 more missions. Survived war. Became hero of Soviet Union. Later wrote memoirs. Mentioned the banned parachute. It saved my life. I wore it against orders. Would do it again. Policy was stupid. Reality was clear. I chose reality. April 1942. Captain Boris Safonov. Fighter ace. 39 kills. Elite pilot. Flying I-16 fighter. Obsolete aircraft by 1942 standards. But Safonov made it work. He knew its limitations. Exploited its strengths. Tight turning radius. Excellent low-altitude performance. Good for dogfighting. German formation. 6 Bf-109s. Safonov attacked alone. Aggressive tactic. High risk. He shot down one, damaged another, but remaining 4 turned on him. Overwhelming numbers. They hit his engine, hit his fuel tank. The I-16 caught fire, immediate fire, fuel-fed, intense heat. Cockpit became furnace. Safonov tried to reach Soviet lines, maybe force land, but fire was too intense. Controls melting, instruments failing, skin on his hands blistering from heat. Altitude, 500 meters. Too low for safe bailout without parachute. But he had parachute. Kotelnikov's design. One of first 50 produced. He bailed, jumped clear, fell, deployed parachute. It opened. He descended. Landed hard. Injured ankle. Not serious. Hobbled to Soviet positions. Was treated. Returned to duty. Continued flying. Shot down in June 1942. Different engagement. Different circumstances. But the April bailout proved parachutes worked. Saved elite pilot. Preserved experience. Extended his combat career by 2 months. In those 2 months, he shot down 6 more German aircraft. 6 victories that wouldn't exist without the parachute. May 1942, Junior Lieutenant Ivan Kozhedub, future top Soviet ace, 62 kills by war's end. But in May 1942, he was inexperienced, new pilot, 8 missions, no kills, learning, making mistakes. One mistake nearly killed him. German FW-190, better aircraft, more experienced pilot. Kozhedub couldn't escape. The German pilot hit him. 20mm cannon, multiple hits, wing damage, fuel leak, engine damage. The La-5 fighter was finished. Kozhedub was at 700 meters altitude. Good height for parachute, but La-5 cockpit was difficult to escape. Tight space, complex mechanism. He had parachute, struggled to bail out. Canopy release failed, stuck. He kicked it, desperate, kicked again. It shattered. Plexiglass everywhere. He pulled himself through broken canopy, cut his face, cut his hands, but got out. Free fall, deployed parachute, safe descent, landed in forest, Soviet territory, retrieved, minor injuries, back to combat within 1 week. Without parachute, he would have died May 1942. Instead, survived, became top Soviet ace. Those 62 kills happened because parachute gave him second chance, gave him time to learn, to improve, to become elite. The parachute didn't just save one pilot. It saved future victories, future German aircraft destroyed, future battles won. His commander asked about the parachute. "Where did this come from?" "Salvaged from German aircraft, Comrade Commander." "You're certain?" "Yes, Comrade Commander." "Good. We need more. Find more salvage." Word spread. Pilots wanted parachutes, didn't care about policy, didn't care about ideology. They cared about survival, about returning from missions, about seeing tomorrow. Parachutes meant survival. They wanted them, demanded them, found ways to acquire them. Kotelnikov's production increased, 6 parachutes per day, 7. His team expanded, 8 seamstresses now, working double shifts. The basement factory operated continuously. Materials flowed in through creative requisitions. Parachutes flowed out through informal networks. No paperwork, no records, just survival equipment moving to people who needed it. By March 1942, he had produced 120 parachutes, distributed to 6 squadrons, Il-2 ground attack, Yak-1 fighters, PE-2 bombers. Any pilots who wanted survival equipment received it. Quietly, unofficially, against regulations. The survival rate improved. Pilots who bailed out with parachutes lived, returned to duty, flew more missions. The squadrons using parachutes had 30% lower pilot mortality than squadrons without. Same missions, same risks, just better survival equipment. But nobody investigated why. Nobody asked where parachutes came from. Commanders knew, chose not to know officially. Policy said no parachutes. Reality said pilots were surviving. Reality won. Policy was ignored, unofficially. April 1942. NKVD noticed. Security services tracked everything. They saw parachutes appearing, pilots surviving bailouts, equipment that shouldn't exist. Investigation began. Where were parachutes coming from? Who was producing them? Why? The investigation traced parachutes to Stalingrad, to aircraft repair depot, to factory basement, to Kotelnikov. They identified him, documented his activities, prepared arrest, charges, sabotage, theft of military property, violation of military regulations, undermining military discipline. Possible sentence: execution. May 18, 1942. NKVD officers arrived at the factory. 3 men, black uniforms, pistols, arrest warrant. They found Kotelnikov in basement, sewing parachute number 193. Evidence of crime, incontrovertible. Gleb Evgenievich Kotelnikov, you are under arrest for theft of military property and violation of military regulations. Come with us. He didn't resist. Knew this was coming. Eventually. Had prepared mentally. Accepted consequences. May I finish this parachute first? It's nearly complete. Some pilot will need it. No, come now. They took him. Left the basement, left the parachutes, left the equipment, drove him to NKVD headquarters. Interrogation began immediately. The interrogator was Major Pavel Ustinov, NKVD investigator, 15 years experience. He had extracted confessions from hundreds, broken resistance, found conspiracies, exposed enemies. Kotelnikov was just another case, another criminal to process. Gleb Evgenievich Kotelnikov, you are charged with theft of military property, violation of military regulations, undermining military discipline, possible sabotage. These are serious charges, capital offenses. You understand? I understand the charges. I reject the characterization. You admit to producing parachutes? Yes. 193 parachutes, distributed to combat pilots. These parachutes were explicitly banned by directive from Comrade Stalin himself? The directive was dated March 1940. I'm aware of it. Yet you violated this directive deliberately? Yes. You knew violation could result in execution? Yes. Ustinov was surprised by the directness. Most criminals denied, deflected, blamed others. Kotelnikov admitted everything, no hesitation, no evasion. This was unusual, made interrogation simpler, but also more disturbing. Why would someone admit to capital crime without resistance? Why did you do this? Because pilots were dying unnecessarily. The policy was counterproductive. I fixed the problem. You fixed Stalin's policy? You presume to know better than Comrade Stalin? On parachute technology, yes. I know better. I've studied parachutes for 31 years, designed dozens of models, observed thousands of jumps, calculated descent rates, studied deployment mechanics. I understand parachutes better than anyone in Soviet Union, possibly better than anyone in world. Stalin understands politics, strategy, leadership, but not parachutes, different expertise. This is blasphemy, questioning Stalin's judgment. This is technical assessment. Stalin made policy decision based on political theory. Theory said parachutes encourage cowardice. I have empirical data. Data says parachutes save pilots. Theory conflicts with data. Data wins, always. Reality doesn't care about theory. Ustinov leaned forward. You're telling me you know better than Stalin? About parachutes, yes. About politics, no. About strategy, no. About running Soviet Union, absolutely not. But about emergency aviation equipment? Yes. I know better. This isn't arrogance. This is specialization. Stalin wouldn't ask me about political theory. I don't ask him about parachute design. Different domains, different expertise. Who authorized this production? Nobody. I worked independently. Who helped you? 3 seamstresses initially, later expanded to 8. I recruited them. They volunteered. Knew risks. Chose to participate. They're not conspirators. They're patriots who saw pilots dying. Wanted to help. Give me their names. No. Refusing to cooperate? Protecting civilians. I'm responsible. I organized this. I made decisions. They just sewed fabric, following my instructions. Technical workers. Not criminals. I'll find them anyway. Probably. But I won't assist. My crime, my responsibility, they shouldn't face consequences for following my instructions. Ustinov changed tactics. What was your goal? Undermining military authority? Creating chaos? Sabotage? Saving pilots, that's all. No political agenda, no conspiracy, just engineering solution to unnecessary deaths. How many pilots have you saved? Documented. 140 pilots who bailed out successfully, returned to duty. Estimated, many more who haven't reported. Possibly 200 total. Plus future saves from parachutes not yet used. Projected. Another 500 to 1,000 pilots over next 2 years. Conservative estimate. You've calculated this? I calculate everything. Engineer, mathematics, data, that's how I think. Show me the data. Kotelnikov pulled papers from pocket. He'd anticipated this, carried documentation, lists of pilots, dates of bailouts, squadron assignments, aircraft types, everything documented, organized, presented clearly. Ustinov studied the documents, cross-referenced them mentally. Some names he recognized: Petrov, Safonov, Yegorova, famous pilots, heroes. They had survived bailouts, used parachutes. This was verifiable. True, the documentation was thorough, professional, not fabricated. This data supports your claim, but it doesn't justify violation of orders. What justifies orders? Results or authority? If orders produce bad results, should we follow them anyway? Or should we adapt, find solutions? Reality is laboratory. Policy is hypothesis. If hypothesis fails in laboratory, we modify hypothesis. We don't deny laboratory results. You're not scientist, you're engineer, following orders. Engineers serve reality, not authority. Bridge either holds weight or collapses. Doesn't matter what policy says. Physics doesn't care about authority. Parachutes either save pilots or they don't. Data says they do. Policy said they didn't. Data was right. Policy was wrong. I chose data. The interrogation continued for hours. Same questions, different angles. Ustinov tried to find conspiracy, hidden agenda, political motivation, found nothing. Just engineer who saw problem, calculated solution, implemented it, violated orders, accepted consequences, no complexity, no conspiracy, just pragmatic action based on technical assessment. The case file was prepared, documented thoroughly, sent to Moscow, to Lavrenti Beria, People's Commissar of Internal Affairs, head of NKVD, second most powerful man in Soviet Union. He reviewed personally, read everything, studied data, cross-referenced pilot survival rates, then did something unexpected for NKVD chief. He investigated objectively. He requested combat records, pilot casualties by squadron, compared squadrons with parachutes to squadrons without. The difference was stark. Squadrons with parachutes, 28% pilot mortality. Squadrons without, 43%. 15 percentage points difference. Statistically significant, operationally significant. He calculated economic value. Training one pilot cost 50,000 rubles, 6 months instruction, 100 hours flight time, fuel, ammunition, instructors, everything. Losing pilot meant losing that investment, plus operational experience, combat knowledge, skills that couldn't be taught, only learned through survival. Parachute cost, 200 rubles, materials, labor, overhead. Saving one pilot paid for 250 parachutes. The economics were overwhelmingly favorable. Parachutes were profitable, extremely profitable. They preserved human capital, maintained operational effectiveness, improved military performance. But economics alone didn't decide. Beria was political operator. He considered implications. Stalin had signed the ban. Reversing it meant admitting mistake. Stalin didn't admit mistakes. Leaders didn't admit mistakes. That showed weakness, vulnerability, political risk. But not reversing it meant continued pilot losses, unnecessary losses, preventable losses. That showed incompetence, stupidity, also political risk, worse political risk, because continued failure was visible. Everyone could see pilots dying. Not everyone understood policy nuances. But everyone understood unnecessary death. Beria made calculation, political calculation. Reversing ban and blaming subordinates was better than maintaining ban and accepting blame for failures. Stalin could reverse the ban, claim he'd been misinformed, blame previous advisors, maintain authority while adapting policy. This preserved political capital while improving outcomes. Optimal solution. He wrote report. Careful wording. Respectful to Stalin. Blamed previous military advisors for recommending the ban. Claimed they misrepresented parachute impact. Provided new data showing parachutes improve combat effectiveness. Recommended policy reversal. Made it seem like Stalin was being given new information. Not reversing failed policy. Just updating based on new data. Stalin read the report. Understood the political framing. Appreciated Beria's careful approach. Made decision. The policy would reverse. Parachutes would be authorized. Kotelnikov would not be punished. Would be promoted. Made official. Everything transformed from criminal to hero overnight. Because data supported him. Because outcomes vindicated him. Because reality proved him right. Stalin read the report. Considered the data. Made decision. June 5, 1942. New order. Previous policy regarding parachutes is rescinded. Combat pilots will be issued emergency parachutes. This equipment is authorized. Production will begin immediately. All combat squadrons will be equipped by September 1942. The order continued. Regarding Gleb Kotelnikov, his unauthorized production violated regulations. However, his actions preserved significant military assets, saved trained pilots, improved combat effectiveness. He will not be prosecuted. He will be promoted to lead authorized parachute production program. Previous charges dismissed. Beria himself delivered the news. Arrived at NKVD detention center. Found Kotelnikov in cell. Comrade Kotelnikov, you're free. Charges dropped. More than that. Stalin wants you to lead official parachute program. Turn your illegal factory into official production. Train others. Equip entire Air Force. You have unlimited resources. Whatever you need. Build parachutes. Save pilots. Legally this time. Kotelnikov was stunned. I'm not being executed? Stalin read the data. You were right. The policy was stupid. He changed it. That's leadership. Recognizing mistakes, correcting them. You forced his hand, made him see the problem. Now fix it, officially. What about the pilots who already have parachutes? Will they face charges? No. Retroactive authorization. Everything you did is now considered authorized. Always was authorized. Paperwork will reflect this. Nobody faces consequences. Just continue the work, with official support. Kotelnikov returned to the factory. June 8th. Found his team waiting, afraid, uncertain, thinking he was dead. He walked in. They stared. Comrade Kotelnikov, you're alive? Alive. Promoted. Authorized. The ban is lifted. We're official now. Keep working. Build parachutes. We have entire Air Force to equip. 3,000 combat pilots. 15,000 parachutes needed. We have work to do. Production expanded dramatically. Official resources. Real budget. 20 seamstresses. Proper materials. No more creative requisitions. No more hiding. Just legitimate production. Industrial scale. By September 1942, they were producing 30 parachutes per day. By December, 50 per day. The entire Soviet Air Force received parachutes. Every combat pilot, every transport crew, everyone. The survival rate improved across all squadrons. Pilots who were shot down could bail out, parachute to safety, walk back to Soviet lines, return to duty. The Air Force preserved experienced personnel, maintained combat effectiveness. The policy change had measurable impact. Between June 1942 and May 1945, approximately 11,000 Soviet pilots bailed out of damaged aircraft, using parachutes, surviving. 9,200 of them returned to duty, flew more missions, continued fighting. Without parachutes, all 11,000 would have died, burned, crashed, lost. The parachutes saved them. Kotelnikov tracked the numbers, kept records. Each pilot saved, each mission flown by survivor. The data accumulated. By war's end, the pilots he'd saved had collectively flown over 38,000 combat missions. destroyed estimated 2,100 German aircraft, killed estimated 8,000 German soldiers, all because they survived initial shoot-downs, had second chances, third chances. Some pilots bailed out 5 times. Each time, parachute saved them. Each time, they returned to combat. The strategic value was enormous. Germany lost pilots permanently. Luftwaffe had no depth, no reserves. Experienced German pilots were irreplaceable. When they died, that experience was lost forever. But Soviet pilots survived, accumulated experience, became veterans, elite. The parachutes created experience advantage. Soviet pilots survived, learned, improved, dominated. By 1944, Soviet air superiority was absolute, partly due to production, partly due to tactics, but significantly due to pilot experience. Veteran pilots who had survived multiple shoot-downs, who had been saved by parachutes, who continued fighting. The parachutes were force multiplier, not just survival equipment, strategic asset. October 1944, Kotelnikov received Hero of Soviet Union, Gold Star Medal, highest honor. Citation read, "For exceptional contribution to defense of motherland, Comrade Kotelnikov's development and production of emergency parachute system saved thousands of Soviet pilots, preserved critical military assets, significantly contributed to achievement of air superiority. His dedication and courage exemplify Soviet heroism." The ceremony was public. Stalin personally awarded the medal. Shook Kotelnikov's hand. Said quietly, "You were right. I was wrong. The policy was foolish. You fixed it. Thank you," Kotelnikov responded carefully. "Comrade Stalin, policy is theory, reality is practice. Sometimes they conflict. When that happens, reality should win. That's all I did. Chose reality over theory." Stalin smiled slightly. Diplomatic answer, but accurate. Continue your work. We need more reality, less theory. After the war, Kotelnikov was interviewed about the banned parachutes, about violating Stalin's direct order, about risking execution. The interviewer asked predictable questions. He answered honestly. "Why did you disobey orders?" "Because orders were wrong. Following wrong orders kills people. I'm engineer. Engineers fix problems. Stupid policy was problem. I fixed it." "But you risked your life. NKVD could have executed you." "Yes, but pilots were dying. Definitely dying. Without parachutes, guaranteed death. My execution was possible. Their deaths were certain. The choice was obvious." "What if Stalin hadn't changed the policy? What if you'd been executed?" "Then I'd be dead. But the parachutes would still exist. Other pilots would continue using them. Quietly. Unofficially. My death wouldn't change that. The need for parachutes was real. Somebody would fill it. Maybe not me, but somebody. Reality doesn't care about policy. Reality just is. You either adapt to reality or reality kills you." "Some call you a hero." "I'm engineer who made equipment, that's all. The pilots are heroes. They flew into fire, fought enemies, died for country. I just gave them tool to survive. That's not heroism. That's common sense." "But you violated Stalin's direct order." "Stalin's order was based on faulty premise, that parachutes cause cowardice, but parachutes don't cause cowardice. Fear causes cowardice. Parachutes just give options. Pilot with parachute can press attack knowing he has escape. Pilot without parachute hesitates, wonders if this mission is suicide. The parachute improves courage, doesn't reduce it. Stalin didn't understand this initially. He learned. That's leadership, learning from mistakes." What would you say to others who face similar dilemma? Wrong orders versus right action? Kotelnikov thought carefully. Assess the stakes. If following orders causes significant harm, disobey carefully. Document reasons. Be prepared for consequences. But don't disobey trivially. Don't disobey for convenience. Only disobey when moral imperative is clear. When following orders creates unnecessary death, unnecessary suffering, then disobedience becomes duty, not rebellion. Duty to higher principle, preservation of life. That's not political, that's human. The interview was published in Military Journal, became required reading at Soviet military academies. The lesson was complex, nuanced, not simple obedience, not simple rebellion, but thoughtful assessment, moral clarity, willingness to face consequences when principle demanded action. But the story was also simplified, made inspirational. The engineer who defied Stalin, saved thousands, changed policy, received highest honor, neat narrative, clear message. Reality was messier, more complicated, more uncertain. But the simplified version served purpose, taught important lesson. Sometimes disobedience is correct. Sometimes authority is wrong. Sometimes individual judgment trumps institutional rules. The parachute program became standard worldwide. Every Air Force adopted it. Emergency parachutes for all pilots. Common sense. Obvious necessity. Nobody questioned it after World War II. The Soviet experience proved the concept, demonstrated value, made parachutes universal standard. But it almost didn't happen. Almost remained banned. Almost continued killing pilots unnecessarily. All because policy said pilots should fight to death, should never abandon aircraft, should be fearless revolutionary heroes. The policy was beautiful theory, deadly practice. Kotelnikov recognized this, chose practice over theory, survival over ideology. He died in 1944, age 60, heart attack, stress, exhaustion, 3 years of underground production, constant fear of arrest, then explosive expansion of official program. His heart couldn't sustain the pressure. He collapsed at factory, died before ambulance arrived. Quick, relatively painless, but tragic. War was nearly won. He almost saw victory, almost saw the end. His funeral was state affair, military honors. Stalin attended. Unusual. Stalin rarely attended funerals, but he came, stood silently, paid respects, later explained why. Kotelnikov taught me important lesson, that loyalty means telling leaders when they're wrong, not just obeying blindly. He was loyal, more loyal than those who obeyed stupid policy without question. True loyalty serves the cause, not the leader's ego. Kotelnikov served the cause, saved pilots, won battles. That's loyalty. The funeral oration praised Kotelnikov's courage, his innovation, his dedication, but skipped over the illegal production, the violation of orders, the arrest. Those details were complicated, didn't fit neat narrative, so they were omitted, simplified, made clean. The official story was, brilliant engineer developed parachutes, military adopted them, saved thousands, simple, inspiring, incomplete. But pilots knew the real story, knew Kotelnikov had worked illegally, had risked everything, had been arrested, had survived only because data supported him. They understood the complexity, appreciated the courage required. Not just engineering courage, moral courage, facing NKVD, telling interrogators that Stalin's policy was stupid, surviving that honesty through luck and data. That was extraordinary courage. The pilots who survived because of his parachutes never forgot. They formed Veterans Association after the war, named it after him, Kotelnikov Society, dedicated to preserving his memory, teaching his story, ensuring future generations understood. One engineer, working alone initially, against direct orders, saved 2,000 pilots, changed military doctrine, forced Stalin to reverse policy. That's impact. That's legacy. His parachute design remained standard in Soviet Union until 1970s, 30 years. Same basic design, silk canopy, steel rigging lines, quick release harness, simple, reliable, effective. Later designs were improvements, better materials, faster deployment. But fundamental concept remained Kotelnikov's: his engineering, his vision, his refusal to accept stupid policy. The ban was explicit, absolute, signed by Stalin, backed by NKVD. Violation meant death. He violated it anyway, produced banned equipment, distributed it illegally, saved thousands, changed history. That's not simple story, not clear moral, just complicated reality. Sometimes rules are wrong, sometimes authority is mistaken, sometimes individual has to act, accept consequences, hope for best. That's what Kotelnikov did. That's what worked. That's what mattered. They banned his parachute, called it cowardice enabler, said Soviet pilots didn't need it, shouldn't want it, would be shot for having it. He built them anyway. 50 units, then 200, then thousands. Pilots survived, flew more missions, won battles. The ban became absurd, obviously wrong, indefensible. Stalin reversed it, authorized production, made it official. All because one engineer refused to accept that policy was more important than lives. What he said in NKVD interrogation remained truth. You can kill me. Can't unsave the pilots I've already saved. Can't erase the parachutes already distributed. My death changes nothing. The parachutes remain. The pilots survive. That's what matters. They were shocked by his defiance. Shocked that he questioned policy. Shocked that he admitted violating orders. Shocked that he showed no remorse. Just engineering logic. Just moral clarity. Just certainty that he was right. They were wrong. Reality proved him correct. Data supported him. Stalin recognized this, reversed the ban, made Kotelnikov hero. That's how shock transformed to respect, how violation became vindication, how banned equipment became standard issue. The engineer they almost executed saved 2,000 pilots, changed air warfare, forced policy reversal, received highest honors. That's not what they expected. That's what shocked them. Sometimes the banned solution is the only solution. Sometimes disobedience is the highest duty. Sometimes one person can change everything, even against Stalin, even against death threats, even alone in basement, just by being right and refusing to stop.